Welcome to Modern Entrepreneur. Today we have Rachel Schnorr, Joseph Hogg, Christy Mims, Carla Johnson, Welcome to Modern Entrepreneur. I'm Landon Ray, and today we have Shane Barker, who was recognized as one of the 100 most influential people in influencer marketing, alongside Kim Kardashian, Gary Vaynerchuk, and legendary PR leaders like the CEO of Edelman. He's also an instructor of personal branding and influencer marketing at UCLA and a contributor at Inc.com, HuffPost, Forbes, Salesforce. He's also an international keynote speaker with over 20 years of consulting and has been a driving force in the influencer space for over 6 years. Thank you so much for being here.
God,
Does that sound like you?
That guy sounds impressive. Yeah, I was like, I want to be that guy when I get older. That's awesome. Yeah.
Awesome, good. Well, let's talk about how you can be that guy.
Yeah.
Tell me about actually that exactly. If you could go back, a bunch of years, you've been at this a long time. You've gotten to a place where people listen to you and care what you have to say. What would have made that path smoother or faster for you?
Yeah, it's funny. We were just talking about this earlier. I think I've been doing it for 20 years in digital space at least. And it's one I was actually talking with one of your interns and kind of telling her, like, listen, the route of doing the internship, I never did an internship, and I had a good network of people that I worked with, but I never really tapped in my network the way that I should have. I didn't really appreciate the network side of thing until probably 10 years into my career. And so I have my son who's in college, and I tell him, like, hey, listen, he went to Jesuit high school. And I said, listen, the reason why I have you at Jesuit, your mom is on one side of the reason why you're at Jesuit. My other side is the networking. It's like really getting to know those people that are there. They have businesses, they're successful, like putting yourself in those places and getting to understand those people's businesses and how they work and how they do life. And so that's been, for me, that would have been something that I would have changed of I'm real happy with where I'm at today, but I feel like I probably could have cut off 5 years by looking at either mentorship or looking at other people to help me accelerate my process or accelerate, get me to where I want to be. And so I think that to me, that would be the big thing.
That's interesting that you say that, because the very last interview we did in here, the woman basically said the same thing, that she would have found mentors earlier.
Yeah.
And so I'll actually ask you the question that I asked her, which is, how do you sort of inspire a mentor, somebody who's, if they're successful, they time is precious for them, and they've probably got a lot of people asking for their advice, or to use her words, pick their brains. How do you inspire that person to spend any time on you?
Cash always works, it seems to always work when I offer money. For me, it's, I usually don't ever ask for anything for free, so for me, I'm like, hey, listen, I'll pay for your time, whatever your hourly is. And the idea for me is to build a relationship, right? And then maybe over time they say, hey, let's go do coffee, or I'll buy them dinner, or whatever that is. But in the beginning, I value people's time, and so I don't ever ask for anything for free. Now, it's funny, now on the opposite side of that, I meet with people all the time for free, and I don't ever charge people, because I want to help people. I feel like there's certain things that I've learned in the business and just through life that is extremely valuable to people. And if I can help you cut off 2 years of don't do this or don't spend money doing this or whatever, I can help educate them, I want to be able to do that. But on the other side of it, I don't want to assume that people aren't willing to, that they shouldn't be paid for their time. So I look at it the opposite. I go, hey, maybe after meeting 5 or 10 times, they go, hey, you seem like an awesome guy, or maybe you're not an awesome guy, whatever the deal is. But if you are an awesome guy, they think that, then hey, then we should move on, and maybe we can do some stuff that's more of a social type thing and less of a paid type thing. But I just, once again, I assume that everybody's time is valuable.
Have always found that advice taking is challenging. Typically, my experience with mentors has been that they, don't spend enough time to really understand my challenges, or at least I feel that they don't. And so I basically will tend to not value what they have to say because they don't really understand. It's easy to not, sort of take that advice when you don't value it a ton, right? So how would you say it would be useful to go about getting advice that you'll actually act on?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the types of questions that you when you talk about a mentorship or somebody that would help you. They're obviously probably not going to understand your business as well as you do, right? Because you're in it on a daily basis. But when I talk to mentors, and even when I go and see other people's speeches and stuff like that, for me, I just want to be able to get 1 or 2 nuggets from that, right? So if I go and see an hour speech, I don't expect for the whole time for it to be riveting. I want to be able to pull out a great website or pull out something like an aha moment of like, oh, I didn't even think about that. So the same thing with mentors is like, I look at it like, I come and say, hey, these are some of my issues, these are some things that I have. And maybe through the whole hour, maybe there's only one or two things that I really go, okay, that was extremely valuable, right? This is something that can change. Or really what I do with mentors is try to jump into their Rolodex if possible, right? To see, right? Because that's the idea is like, hey, if you have a great accountant that's rocked for you for 30 years, like, I would like that introduction. Like, I don't want to have to go through these other 15 accountants to find the one that absolutely understands business and is always being proactive about stuff. And so I look at it more that way, like once you trust me and once I'm in your network, now I'm in the trust tree, right? Whatever you want to call it, this network of people. And I think that for me is where the value can come in. You know, not every mentor is going to be super awesome, right? I mean, you have to kind of evaluate that as well. And I think that's where the paid thing for me is when I go in, I can, because that's an interview for, as much as I'm interviewing them, they're interviewing me, it's both, right? So for me, even though I'm paying, I still have to figure out, is this where I should be spending my money to, you know, what if I'm asking these certain questions? If you're very basic, you're not engaged, then there's no reason to continue. If you go, God, I'm really interested in your business model, the things that you're doing, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for somebody that wants to work with me, and this is hopefully down the road. And once again, I'll continue to pay. If my mentors are watching this, I'll continue to pay you. But if not, then there's also that side of it of like, you know, hey, let's develop a deeper relationship and, you know, something down the road. Yeah, awesome. So tell me what you feel like your unique skill set is. I don't know, like I can create content. Like I have a 31-person team. We produce a lot of content, like writing, like blogs and stuff like that. And so I would say I'm a pretty good people person as well. So I would say that's my, not anything I learned in school or through life, just engaging with people and having good conversations. So I really enjoy that side of it. Like speaking is obviously a lot of fun, and obviously being here is super awesome. But like I just enjoy engaging with people. I think that's where I kind of have that natural. I was actually in GATE, the Gifted and Talented Education, and leadership was one of my strong suits. They recognized that in second grade, so who knew? So we don't know where I fell off, but we just know early on they were onto it, and then somehow I went left, or right, either way. But yeah, I would say that's probably it. All joking aside, probably leadership is like just being able to go in and evaluate people and assess people and have a good management, you know, the way that I handle things and assess situations. Yeah. So tell me more about your business. You're doing influencer marketing. So how does that work? For my business, there's two sides of it. We have influencer marketing that we do for clients, and so we do. I'm actually creating education now, so courses. So what we're doing is how to educate influencers on how to work with brands, and then also for brands how to work with influencers. So I teach a course at UCLA, so that's what it is. It's a personal branding course on how to be an influencer. And once again, on the other side of the other quarter, because it's a quarter system at UCLA, then we have the other stuff that we're teaching the brands how to work with influencers, because there's just a disconnect there. They want to work together doing this, but there's just certain guidelines and stuff that they don't put in place. So I love influencer marketing. It's a little difficult to scale because there's so many variables to it, right? Unless you find great influencers that you can use all the time. I enjoy this space, but really where we've excelled is the content side of things, is where we have the team, have editors and writers and stuff, and we write for a lot of the bigger websites, so we can see a good PR push for companies that are looking for that. So that's, for me, that's scalable because it's just finding good writers. We have good processes in place. Now, when you talked about that on the stage earlier about processes, the content side of things, we have good processes, always need to be improved, of course. The influencer side of things, we have some processes, but it's a lot, you have a lot more variables that are potential issues, right? For us, we know how to find great keywords, we know to look at the competition, we know how to look at great titles, and we know how to put great content together with great graphics and all that we have good systems in place. But with influencer marketing, I can go reach out to 30 new influencers and I don't know if they're going to be good or bad, or if they're going to, you know, you have to evaluate that. So it's a lot more time consuming. And I think people think that it's a lot easier because, hey, you just reach out to somebody and they post a picture, you give them some money and you retire and you go to the Cayman Islands and drink Coronas and you retire, right? But that's not that way anymore. It's a little bit more to it these days. Yeah. Interesting. So, so you're producing content on behalf of brands as well as helping them to contact influencers and get. So we work with like a lot of SaaS companies. There's a number of different companies we work with, but really what the goal of this is that we say, okay, you want to produce whatever, 1 blog post, 2 blog posts, 3 blog posts, and you want to go after certain keywords, like let's say your competition is crushing you for whatever this is, right? It's process automation, or let's say it's something like that. Then what we would do is we would go in and take a look at the competition, see how difficult the keywords are, and then produce some content around that, and then, you know, after 6 months, hopefully be able to take over for certain keywords. So that's kind of SEO. I mean, yeah, it's pretty, absolutely. It's my background's in SEO. So that was influencer marketing, like kind of found me. Like there was a client that came to me and said, hey, I need some help with social media marketing. And I said, yeah, this is interesting. And that's what I talked about on stage was, you know, she was making $400,000, 22 years old as a fitness influencer, 180,000 followers on Instagram, and she was crushing it. And she was like, I just don't feel like I'm doing that good. I'm like, $400,000 a year, you're 22 years old, you have like a gym membership as your overhead. Like, you're not doing too bad, sister. Like, she didn't really get that, right? And for me, I'm like, you have like a $65 gym membership. Like, literally that's your overhead and like rent. She ended up buying a house, and we got her to $1 million. I mean, she was, making $1 million a year off of fitness ebooks. Like, I mean, just who knew, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy, crazy.
Yeah, I should be in that business.
Yeah. That's what I was going to talk to you about. I was like, I don't know.
That guy looks really fit.
Yeah. I'm like,
I'd like
build
to
a better
him.
booty. That was the program, so I don't know if you're into it. I'm not, I'm not here to judge, and if you are, that's cool.
So you have this agency, you got 31 employees, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So you have to keep a stream of business coming in.
I do.
How are you making that happen?
We're not. We've got about 2 months left. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, so we can cut that. No, it's funny. So I talked about it on stage, and this isn't something I'm bragging about. I'm the only salesperson. And that's not to brag, because I really probably need salespeople. So if you guys see this video, please send me your resumes. But if you're a good salesperson, if you're not good, then we don't need you. So for me, the speaking engagements help, the writing stuff that we do, because most of it, I still write a lot. I mean, my team writes a lot. And so it's all inbound marketing for me. And that's because of what I built over the last 5 or 6 years. So I don't need to do any outbound. I'm not saying I shouldn't. And we do some Facebook ads and stuff, but mainly it's because of what I built from the inbound. So now it's those leads coming in on the automation side of it, right? Obviously going and, qualifying the lead and figuring that. And so the people that come to me are the 10 people that come in a day, and then I have that one person that would be somebody that would be a good potential client for us.
Sure. So that sounds like pretty traditional, like modern marketing, right?
Yeah.
Build a content engine and drive leads. How long our process, to build all that has taken a long time, years.
Yeah.
How long do you feel like that? Like if somebody's, wants to build a better booty business, and they're like, I'm starting out. What does it take to build that edifice? Do you think? How long does that take?
A long time. I mean, Zoe was the right product at the right time for the right audience, and it's not always that way. So with Zoe, her thing was that she was a runner, so she was pretty skinny. And then what happened was because she's very passionate about what she does, she quit when she didn't run that much, and now she just started building muscle. And so for her, her audience saw her literally from having no booty to what I call her inner J-Lo. 2 years later, her booty popped out because she was doing her exercises. So,
I see.
Yeah, I'll give you a copy of the ebook. You can, you're welcome. So that's in that whole process there was like the girls that were following her, because she had a heavily engaged audience, said, okay, this is me today with Zoe 2 years ago, and look what she built, and that's what I want. So our before and after pictures were like instant gold. And so what happened was, what we did is when Zoe ended up hiring us, we ended up revamping everything and making it so, hey, in the beginning, make sure you take a picture of yourself, and so you can compare it to the you today, and now you have Jennifer 2.0 down 6 months, or whatever, 3 months. It's a 12-week program. Then you can go and see the difference in the results. So that was the winner for us. If people want to go and have that type of success, it's going to take a lot of work. I mean, it just is. Zoe hit at the right time, had that right audience, and was already kind of building that up. So we got very fortunate. If somebody came to me and says, hey, I want to be a fitness influencer and I have one follower, it's going to be a long journey. It is. There's definitely ways to do it, and there's things you can streamline that. But assuming you want to do it full time and make the kind of money that influencers make, you have to put in the time. You got to put in a lot of time, a lot of effort. And so Years, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's like anything else. If you think you're going to get overnight success, that's just not going to happen. You really have to. You probably want to make it a side gig, and then once you get to a point, you get some brands involved, and then you can start producing content. I mean, there's multiple revenue streams you can do through that. But it definitely is not it's not an overnight thing. People think it's like, hey, I can just become an influencer overnight. It's not. And even then, you have to create great content. So it's not. It's a different beast.
Just like everything else.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a lot of competition there. You're fighting for. I tell the people that I work with, like influencers, I'm like, if you're not on stage performing, then they're going to go to somebody else. If you're not putting on a show, if you're not putting out content, they're going to move on to the next person. So you got to make sure you stay active. Yeah, for sure. So what is your kind of like cutting edge right now? What are you learning about? I'm the whole blockchain stuff and all that. I'm trying not to get sucked into it too much, because there's always more. There's always so much stuff that's coming through, and AI is interesting. I don't know how it's going to affect content or influencer marketing. I'm intrigued on the influencer side of things on how you can make those processes easier and better, assuming you have you're working in different industries and different influencers. that's probably where I've been kind of spending some of my time. I try to, because once again, it's like, trying to drink out of a water hose is always the analogy, right? So I try to, what I've been doing, to kind of systemize things is I have a lot of people on my team that will do the research for me. That will come back and say, hey, this is what we found, this is what we're looking at. I have with my, I'm doing podcasts and stuff like that as well, and I have my team. I'm trying to figure out it's systems, right? How can I spend less time doing stuff that I don't necessarily have to do, right? And so I'm always intrigued by that, about making it so, as an example, 2 months ago I hired somebody to take over my emails, which was a scary, scary thing, right? I mean, everything comes in there, right?
That's a tough one, yeah.
Yeah, and so, and I've done extensive training to be able to get him where he's at today, and he's doing, Ian, shout out to Ian, doing an awesome job, Ian. He's just crushing it, and it's really nice because now I can spend 2 or 3 hours less a day on that, and systemizing stuff that I want to systemize, and then having the real stuff that I should be responding to, the podcast interviews and all that kind of stuff, taking up the time that I want it to take up, and not. So I'm always interested in looking at what can I do to, once again, how do I get it so that where I'm spending my time is going to be where time that I have to spend, not where I could hire somebody else to be able to go do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect. So when you think back, or when if you can think forward rather, 20 years and look back on your career, what they'll say about you. What do you hope your legacy will be?
For the legacy question, I don't know. I want to, for me, the legacy side of things, I want to help more people, right? I just want people to know that I have a good heart. Yeah. I guess, and being successful and making money, I've had businesses that were extremely successful, and I had businesses that failed miserably. And I think through that whole process, I want to help educate people to streamline their process, to, once again, kind of with the mentorship, right? Where somewhere I feel like I missed out on that. I want to continue that forward and help other people, right? And have people come to me and say that, hey, Shane was a good speaker and he did this, but he also had a good heart and wanted to help people. Because I think that's extremely important, especially these days with the current climate. I want to keep things positive and keep things moving. Yeah. Awesome. So what do you think it means to be a modern entrepreneur? We are in this, maybe unique time. What does it mean to be an entrepreneur today that's different than what it might have meant 5 or 10 years ago? Yeah, I think it's challenging. Being an entrepreneur is challenging. There's a lot of, I think of it, I'm a marketer. I have a 31-person team, and I'm talking about starting, I used to own a bar back in the day. It was a long story, but I thought about opening a restaurant recently and talking to my wife about it, and I have all the tools to do that, right? I have the knowledge and everything, but even then it's like, man, that jump is just going to be, for me, the reason why the restaurant doesn't make sense is because I want to be able to go travel and do more things. I don't want to be tied down like that. But I think with the modern entrepreneur, the thing is it's just a little more challenging. This is what's crazy, is it becomes more challenging, there's more competition, but then you have softwares and you have other stuff that also make it easier, right? So it's not quite, you open a restaurant, let's say 20 years ago, how do you get the word out? It's like a flyer or something, right? Yeah. So now you go, well, there's a lot more competition, and now you have online, but then there's also other ways that I can go create a flyer in 5 minutes online, right? Or I can go do this, or I can develop communities in different ways, right? So maybe it's that, I have these people that come in and this, but now we have, proximity marketing, where I can go and send a message out to somebody's phone within a 0.7 mile radius of my restaurant and pull people in. So some really, really cool and creative ways, and that, I think, makes it a lot more interesting, because there's, once again, different ways to be able to get in front of people. It's not just a flyer and something you put up on a billboard or something. There's a lot of creative ways, but it's, once again, you have to have the time and the knowledge to be able to do that. And I think that's what's hard with being an entrepreneur, is we've all had it. It's okay, there's 5,000 things I need to do today. Where do I spend my time? Yeah. Right? What do I do? That's interesting you say that, because most people, their response to what that question is something like, gosh, there's so much opportunity, it's so much easier than it used to be, and stuff like that. And that's true, like you say, but also competition is radical. Oh, yeah. And I'm curious what you think, if 5 years from now, what about that restaurateur who grew up in restaurants, his mom or dad was a chef, he's been waiting tables since he was 14, and he knows food, and he knows the restaurant business, but maybe not, was never exposed to online marketing or this kind of radius marketing, or creating communities online, and the stuff that we probably think of as modern marketing. Does that guy compete in that future world? Yes and no. I mean, I guess it depends on if, if they have the clientele and they have the people that come in. I think there's, you can, as long as you.
From scratch though, 2 businesses from scratch.
I think it'd be difficult. I think it's going to evolve. It's going to change. If this was a brand new business and you had experience and it was a brand new business, I think it's going to be an uphill battle because it's difficult because you're vying for. Not necessarily eyeballs, for butts and seats.
Yeah.
Right? And that's not always the easiest thing. And if you had a restaurant for 30 years, it becomes a little easier because of, right? And then you have Yelp and all this stuff. Yeah, because of the stuff that you guys have done, the shaking hands and kissing babies for 30 years, right? When people come into your restaurant. So I think that's an easier win if you start from scratch. I mean, you'll see it. Restaurants have an 80% failure rate.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that. It's because most people are a chef. I can make great food. I can get people in seats because I make great food, and they make great food, and you don't get butts and seats.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's a different beast. Like just because you have great food doesn't, just because you have a great product doesn't mean that everybody's going to buy it. You got to go find where those people are at and pull those people in, treat them like gold, and then be able to pull them back in again.
Yeah.
Right? And that's a challenge. It's not just by great food is one variable of it.
Yeah.
Right? There's the other side of it that everybody, we look online, we do this, we do all kind of research. I come to Santa Barbara, what's the first thing I do? I look on Google, what's the best restaurants? And I have 10 great restaurants that.
On Google?
On Yelp, I think it was on Yelp. Yeah, so I Googled it, right? So, but what's crazy about it is there was like 8 restaurants that had like 1,000+ reviews, and they were all 5 stars, like 5. I'm like, so I've got like 8 restaurants to hit in 2 days. So I'm going to be probably going to gain a few pounds, but that's a side note. That's okay.
So given that, do you think it's getting harder or easier to be an entrepreneur? If that kind of stuff is required, I mean, the technology, from my perspective, the technology and the skills around how to wield it is not getting easier. It's getting more complex all the time.
Well, I think this is the hard part, and even as a marketer, it's the hard part is there's always something new and shiny, right? And so it's always difficult to, and we talk about, like you said, hey, like what are you into outside of, let's say marketing, and I'm saying blockchain. I try not to get sucked into that too much, and I think this is the hard part as an entrepreneur. You have a great product, you have to figure out where do you want to focus your time, right? So let's say it's Yelp, my Yelp reviews, right? Because I know that's going to be a big indicator on whether people are going to come into my restaurant, and then treating the people like gold, and then what am I going to do to pull those people back, and then trying those different things. I do think it's going to be a challenge. I mean, it just everything's a challenge. If you go into anything and don't, prep yourself correctly. If you're going to open a restaurant, if you don't have 6 months working capital, that's going to be a problem, right? I mean, there's certain things that people don't think about that we would look at and say, okay, well, you got to make sure you have these ducks in a row to be able to go do that. I think that's the #1 problem. But then the other side of it is, it's just hard, and you have to, because it's like, how do you go hire somebody to help you with the marketing side of things and hope that they know what they're doing, right? Because you have the restaurant, I've got this under control, and now we have this. I mean, I've seen plenty of people partner up with restaurants with marketers that can give you some type of results, but then you're giving up a piece of the pie, right? So that's a variable as well. I don't know. I mean, I love entrepreneurs and I love working with them, but I have entrepreneurs that will come to me and say, hey, Shane, we've got, $500 budget and we want to go do this. And I'm like, I'll meet with you for free because I don't want to take your last $500. But it's like, it's hard times. It's hard times when it comes to marketing, but there's, like anything else, man, you just gotta, you get punched in the face a few times, you gotta keep going.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. It's in the minute you give up is because of finances or whatever, I get that, but it's like, it's not gonna be easy. Like I can tell you, I mean, we all know, right? I've had businesses that were phenomenal, but 80% of my businesses out more failed.
Yeah.
Right? But that's what I learned today, right? And so it's entrepreneurs are, I mean, you gotta have that heart to get into it. It's not easy.
Good. Hey, thank you so much for coming.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me.
Very interesting stuff. Would you sign our wall?
Yeah, let's do it.
Good. Thank you.
Let's do it.